Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Vishwadaya Krishna Sakura Srimad Bhagavatam Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswata Deva Gauravani Prasarane Nirvishya Srimad Bhagavatam Sutare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhara Sri Gaurav Govinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bring Srimad Bhagavatam chapter 20 verse 13. Tam Chaktu Kamam Mamatam
Tam Chaktu Kamam Mamatam
Bhartus Chaga Visankitam
Bhartus Chaga Visankitam
Nama Nirvachanam Tasya
Nama Nirvachanam Tasya
Slokam Enam Sarajadu
Slokam Enam Sarajadu
Tam Chaktu Kamam Mamatam
Tam Chaktu Kamam Mamatam
Bhartus Chaga
Bhartus Chaga Visankitam
Nama Nirvachanam Tasya
Nama Nirvachanam Tasya Slokam Enam Surajadu
Tam Chaktu Kamam Mamatam
Tam Chaktu Kamam Mamatam
Bhartus Chaga
Bhartus Chaga Visankitam
Nama Nirvachanam Tasya
Nama Nirvachanam Tasya
Slokam Enam Surajadu
Slokam Enam Surajadu
Tam Chaktu Kamam Mamatam
Tam Chaktu Kamam Mamatam
Bhartus Chaga Visankitam
Nama Nirvachanam Tasya Slokam Enam Surajadu
The newly born baby, Chaktu Kama, who was trying to avoid Mamatam, unto Mamatam, Bhartu Chaga Visankitam, very much afraid of being forsaken by her husband. Nama Nirvachanam, name giving ceremony. Tasya, to the child, Slokam, verse, Enam, this Surah, the demigods, Jaru, enunciated. Translation: Mamata very much feared being forsaken by her husband for giving birth to an illegitimate son, and therefore she considered giving up the child. But then the demigods solved the problem by enunciating a name for the child. Purport: according to Vedic scripture, whenever a child is born, there are some ceremonies known as Jatakarma and Namakarna, in which learned Brahmanas immediately after the birth of the child, of course, according to astrological calculations, that the child to which Mamata gave birth was begotten by Brihaspati, the religious Greek. For although Mamata was the wife of Bhutatya, Brihaspati made her pregnant by force. Therefore, Brihaspati became Bhakta. According to Vedic culture, a wife is considered the property of her husband, and the son born by illicit sex is called Dvaja. The common word still used in Hindu society for such a son is Dobala, which refers to a son not begotten by the husband of his mother. In such a situation, it's difficult to give the child a name according to proper regulator principles. Mamata therefore was perplexed, but the demigods gave the child the appropriate name Bhaja, which indicated the child born illegitimately should be maintained by both Mamata and Brihaspati. Brihaspati said to Mamata, "You foolish woman, although this child was born from the wife of one man through the semen discharged by another, you should maintain him." Upon hearing this, Mamata replied, "O Brihaspati, you maintain him." After speaking in this way, Brihaspati and Mamata both left. Thus, the child was known as Bharadvaja. Although encouraged by the demigods to maintain the child, Mamata considered him useless because of the illicit birth, and therefore she left him. Consequently, the demigods known as the Marus became a child, and when Maharaj Bharat was disappointed for want of a child, this child was given to him as his son. Purport from this verse is understood that those who are rejected from higher planetary system are given a chance to take birth in the most exalted families on this planet Earth. Let's end the 20th chapter, Srimad Bhagavatam, the Dynasty of Kuru. So this concludes the Dynasty of Kuru, and then the next chapter is about the Dynasty of Bharat. Of course, Bharat was described in this chapter, and now his descendants are described. And all of these personalities come within the line of Vaivasata for this particular period in which we are also residing. And this dynasty had, of course, it's called the Sun Dynasty. Vaivasata comes from the word Vivaswan, which means the sun. But then, out of that we get the Moon Dynasty also coming. And in the Moon Dynasty, then we get a lineage traced up until Krishna appears at the end of this 9th canto. So the whole purpose of all of these lineages traced in the 9th canto is ultimately lead to the birth of Krishna within that dynasty, the Moon. Of course, also Rama was born in the Sun Dynasty. But the purpose of Bhagavatam is actually to glorify Krishna. That's the whole purpose of Bhagavatam. Though we'll find that mostly it is the 10th canto that deals with Krishna, not the whole Bhagavatam. So we can sometimes ask the question, well, if this Bhagavatam is about Krishna, then why isn't the whole Bhagavatam about Krishna? Why do we have to deal with everything else? So, that is true, and therefore the essence of the Bhagavatam is considered to be the 10th canto, although there are references to Krishna in other parts of the Bhagavatam. Actually, in every canto of the Bhagavatam, there's a reference to Krishna somewhere. So if we go through, Jiva Goswami does this, he goes through each canto from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and every canto we got some mention of Krishna somewhere. And so every canto actually mentions Krishna, but it is the 10th canto which is considered to be the essence of the Bhagavatam, even though it's not at the end generally, which is that maybe the final conclusion should be placed at the end, so therefore Krishna's pastime should be at the end and everything should lead up to that. But then after the 10th canto we get 11th and 12th, so it looks a little irregular in that way. However, our acharyas pointed out that though it does not look like it's about Krishna, that is the rest of the Bhagavatam, the devotees don't neglect these other portions. They can say, well, I will just read the 10th canto and I will not read or study the other cantos of the Bhagavatam. However, the whole Bhagavatam is considered to be sacred, and most of it was directly recited by Sukadeva Goswami. Of course, the first canto isn't, and the last part of the 12th canto isn't. So then others will say, well, we'll just hear what Sukadeva, so we can miss out the first canto and the last part of the 12th canto. But that is also rejected by our acharyas. So they accept all cantos from 1 to 12 as worthy of recitation, even though Sukadeva didn't speak everything. And in spite of the fact that it's not all directly about Krishna, mainly the 10th canto, still the devotees hear the whole Bhagavatam. So how is it that they can hear the whole Bhagavatam when they're supposed to worship Krishna? And throughout the Bhagavatam we find all sorts of different stories. Like here we find a story of Brihaspati and having illicit children or something. How does this got to do with Krishna? So, the explanation is that, one, Bhagavatam is a Purana, so therefore it follows the structure of Puranas and it deals with certain subject matters. So it is mentioned, of course, in the Bhagavatam twice, that the subject of a great Purana, a Mahapurana, it has 10 subject matters. Sarga, Visarga, etc., Stana, Bhuti, Ocean, etc. So a Purana generally deals with those 10 subject matters. And if it's a small Purana, it may deal with only 5 subject matters. So, therefore, the Bhagavatam was actually written previously and then revised by Vedavyas after Narada Muni came and said you have to make Krishna the main object of worship. So therefore he revised the Bhagavatam when it was written. So it maintains that structure of being a Purana by having the 10 subject matters, which are roughly equated with the chapters from the third canto up to the 12th canto. We have different subject matters, like the third canto is Sarga, fourth is Visarga, fifth is Sthana, which is the geography of the universe, sixth is Oshana, seventh is Uti, 8 is Manvantara, 9 is Anushadam, 11th is Moksha, 12th is Nirod, and 10th is Asraya, which is the last topic. So, the topics generally correspond to certain cantos of the Bhagavatam. And though that is so, still the devotee will understand that these topics are all ultimately related to Krishna. Because Krishna is called the Asraya, which means the shelter, literally the shelter, or the cause. So Krishna is the shelter or the cause of everything material and spiritual. So because of that, we glorify Krishna by understanding that he is the ultimate cause of the material world. He is the cause of course, the cause of the spiritual world is not there in one sense, but he is ultimately the basis of the spiritual world as well. So, therefore, all these subject matters in the Bhagavatam, such as Sarga, Visarga, etc., have to do with the material world and how the Lord interacts with the material world. Now, generally, they are performed not directly by Bhagavan, but by his Paramatma features of Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and Kshirodaksha Vishnu. So they're the ones that maintain this material world. And Mahavishnu glances over Prakriti, and this evolves into Mahatattva and other elements that form the universes. Then the Lord enters as Garbhodaksha Vishnu, he creates Brahma, and then he expands as Kshirodaksha Vishnu, who expands into all of the jivas in the material world, with their material bodies. So they carry out the function of creating, maintaining, destroying, witnessing, supporting the material world, etc. These functions. So they are not directly Bhagavan, and they're not directly Krishna. So apart from the material world, we have spiritual world, and there we have forms of Bhagavan. What's the difference? They may look the same. Vishnu is Vishnu, so we have Mahavishnu, who's got 4 arms, etc. Spiritual world, we also have Vishnu with 4 arms. They look very similar. They're actually the same person, but function is different, that's all. So the functions are limited in the material world to aspects of creation, makes, and destruction. Spiritual world is all maintenance, destruction, creation, etc. What do they do then? They do pastimes with their devotees. So that is the function of Bhagavan, if we can call it a function, which is ultimately simply a display of his ananda or bliss, to have activities of bliss, and as expressed as pastimes with his devotees. So there are pastimes in Vaikuntha, there are pastimes with the different avatars in the spiritual world with their devotees, and there's pastimes with Krishna with his devotees. So these are all forms of Bhagavan. So the material world over here, where we have a description of Sarga, Visarga, etc., is a matter of the Paramatma feature of the Purusha avatars. And then once that's established, then through them we get the manifestation of avatars. So we get Varaha, Matsya, Kurma, Vamana, etc. appearing. And these are actually described in the cantos from the 3rd canto through the 9th canto, we get a description of the different avatars up until the appearance of Krishna. So in this way we have the avatars appearing in the material world who display the qualities of Bhagavan. They carry out activities in relation to their devotees. So they also have forms in the spiritual world. And so they're not just appearances in the material world, they have internal forms as well. So these are described throughout the different cantos of Bhagavatam. So this covers topics like Poshana, how does the Lord protect his devotees? So he comes in the material world as avatar. Of course, he's there as the holy name, as in the case of Lachemil getting protected by chanting the name on her arm, etc. He is doing this throughout the day of Brahma, throughout his life. So therefore we have a discussion here from the 3rd canto through the 9th canto passes through different Manvantara periods in which the Lord keeps appearing time after time. So it's not just once in a while, it's continually he's appearing throughout the Manvantara periods. And of course he appears through each yuga also, that's described in the 11th canto. That was the yuga avatar as well. So in this way, the Lord carries out his activities with his devotees, as well as carrying out these functions of maintaining, creating, destroying the material world and its features as Paramatma. So, therefore, these subjects of Sarga, Visarga, Sthana, Uti, etc. are basically covering the activities of the Lord as Paramama and as Bhagavan in the material world. But the devotees will relate all of these activities to Krishna. So though they are being done by these different forms of the Supreme Lord, ultimately Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan. So that we have Purusha avatars. The Purusha avatars also are displays of partial qualities, partial powers. And then the forms in the spiritual world have displayed more powers, more qualities. And then Krishna has a display of most qualities and powers. So therefore it's called Swayam Bhagavan. So in that sense, he is the source of everything. So therefore we say that he is the source not only of the material world, but he's the source of all the other forms of the Supreme Lord. So when we speak of the creation and maintenance and destruction of the material world, though it is done directly by the Purusha avatars or Paramatma feature of the Lord, ultimately we trace it back to Krishna. So though we say Mahavishnu is the creator of the material world, we say Krishna is the creator of the material world. So this puts Krishna in a higher position than Mahavishnu. And we will see that there's even a story to illustrate that in the Bhagavatam. There's a story laid in the Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, how Krishna and Arjuna go to meet Mahavishnu and get back the sons of the Brahman. And after that whole episode, then Arjuna begins to wonder, why did Krishna make this arrangement? And why did he allow the sons of the Brahman to get stolen, and the Brahmana had to suffer so much each time his sons were disappeared and taken away? So why did he have to go up to see Mahavishnu, etc.? And then he realized the whole purpose of this was to show him, that is Arjuna, that actually Mahavishnu also desires to see Krishna. But he can't see him unless he goes through this elaborate arrangement of stealing all the Brahman sons, etc. So then he understood that Krishna is much greater than Mahavishnu. Because Mahavishnu can't even go to Dwarka. So, someone who is very qualified gets to meet Krishna and see Krishna. Others cannot see him. That's why Mahavishnu could not enter into Dwarka. So he made this elaborate arrangement. So then he understood that to be the friend of Krishna is to be something very, very special. It's much more than seeing Mahavishnu. So that illustrates that the position of Krishna is much greater than the creator of the material world, even though he has such great powers that all the universes stem from his pores, etc. So, in the Nectar Devotion there, Rupa Goswami defines the powers of Supreme Lord as, apart from Devatas and Shiva, as having 5 extra qualities. One of the qualities is that through the pores of his skin the universes evolve, etc. Another is that the avatars, he manifests all the avatars, so Shiva cannot do that, Shiva cannot do that. So this happens through Mahavishnu and the Purusha avatars. But then Krishna is superior to that. So whatever they can do, Krishna can do. So he has all those qualities, plus he has 4 extra qualities. So therefore, whatever power is in Mahavishnu, that power is also in Krishna. So in that sense, we say that Krishna is the source of the manifestation of all the other forms of the Lord, including the Purusha avatars who are the creators of the material world. Therefore, he has all the powers of all those forms. So it is described in the by our acharyas that when Krishna was born, then all the other forms of the Lord entered into his body. This to show that he has everything in him and all the powers of everybody in him. So whatever great qualities Mahavishnu has, Krishna has those qualities naturally. Whatever qualities Rama has, Krishna has. Whatever qualities Nrsimha has, Krishna has those qualities also. Whatever they can do, he can do. Plus, there's extra things they do not do. So, therefore, all these descriptions of the creation of the material world, the creation of the planetary systems, how the Lord comes with avatars, etc., are also, they show the great power of the Lord, how he can expand himself in different ways, and he's always merciful to the devotees. But all of that is covered by Krishna. Whatever is in these forms, whatever powers and good qualities are there, they're also in Krishna. So, in this way, all of these descriptions in the Bhagavatam just simply take as aspects of Krishna, the good aspects, the different forms of the Lord, etc. Some of the aspects are power, how the Lord manifests power as the Purusha avatars, and some of the aspects are in terms of related to devotees, how the Lord relates with his devotees. So those qualities are also within Krishna. But they're manifested in a more spectacular way. So that is illustrated, of course, in the Bhagavatam itself. As I said, the avatars are the universes come from the Mahavishnu. So this is a statement of how Vishnu is distinct from Shiva and Jivas, etc. So, how does Krishna also do the same thing? And can he manifest his powers? And the answer is yes. Of course, it's a little different how he does this. So that's illustrated in the story of the Brahma Mohana Lila, where Krishna displays to Brahma all of the forms of the calves and cows, and suddenly they turn into Vishnu forms, and the Vishnu forms are the creators of material worlds. So that Krishna is the source of millions and millions of Purusha avatars who create universes. And then Brahma realized, I'm just one of these Brahmas who comes from a Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and there's millions of these Garbhodakshaya Vishnus here. So, in this way, Krishna illustrated to Brahma how he is much, much greater than any of these forms of the Purusha avatars. They manifest by the millions, simply by his will. So, and this he did actually within Vrindavan, where he is showing his maximum sweetness. Yet he can display within that his extreme greatness as well, his Aishwarya as well. So therefore, all of the powers that are manifested in the other forms of God are very easily manifested within Krishna. Even the powers of Ramchandra. So it is said that when Krishna was a child, and sometimes he would enact all of the activities of in play with the cowherd boys. They would enact all of the Leela of Ramchandra in the forest. So in this way, Krishna has all of the qualities of all the forms of the Lord. So in these different cantos, we have the descriptions of the different avatars and their forms, qualities, activities, etc. And their particular functions, what they do in the material world in terms of power, such as Vrava lifts the Bhumandala out of the ocean, Gavadak ocean, great power, or Vama expands himself over the universe, etc. The Vipali, and protect Indra. So all of these are very astonishing stories or depictions of the power of the Supreme Lord and how he protects the devotees. But it's all within Krishna. And beyond that, Krishna shows more extraordinary sweetness. So that sweet aspect of Krishna is revealed in the 10th canto, where he relates with his devotees and the details are given there. So, anyway, just to show that all of the powers all the forms of the Lord are in Krishna, then we should understand all of these events of the other cantos as simply aspects of that power aspect of everything that's in these forms of the Lord are also within Krishna. But he has extra qualities and powers beyond this. So in this way we can relate these different stories to Krishna. So Krishna is so merciful that he appears in the material world in a lineage of devotees, that is the Yadu dynasty. And the Yadu dynasty here is traced back through this lineage here, you see, in the 9th canto, coming from Vaivasata Manu. So, though they have material bodies, these people, members of the family, the Yadus and Krishna do not have material bodies. So it sounds a little remarkable. How is it possible that suddenly we get spiritual manifestation within the material family, the dynasty line? So that is the nature of the appearance of the Lord in the material world. When the Lord appears in the material world, it's not like the spiritual world. Everything is spiritual. We get contact and mixture with the material world. So therefore he appears within a particular dynasty, which is in fact material. It's made up of persons who have material bodies. But he appears within that dynasty. And in his pastimes also, we have not everybody is spiritual. The demons he fights are material. They have material bodies, so he fights them. So there's a mixture of the material elements with the spiritual in the activities of the Lord in the material world. Whereas in the spiritual world, there is no mixture of material things at all. However, though there is a mixture, in no way is the Lord contaminated by the material connections at all. So though he appears within a dynasty in the material world, he is not affected by the material aspects. Though he kills demons, he is not affected in any way by the demons, even if he touches them. Rather, he purifies them. So in all cases, the Lord, even though he is a mixture with the material elements in the material world, he maintains his pure status as the Supreme Lord, and consequently purifies everybody else. So this is how we should understand these different stories here, leading up to the 10th canto. They're simply there to glorify the appearance of Krishna.
Maharaj, you said revealings of Mahavishnu's. So at the end of Brahma's lifetime, when Mahapralaya happens, everything goes back into Mahavishnu's body, and Mahavishnu will be still in manifest state in cosmic ocean, or he will go into Sankarshan?
No, he remains.
So in that case, it's good to understand that in cosmic ocean there will be at any point of time there will be millions of Mahavishnus sleeping or lying.
Not one Mahavishnu.
Many Brahmas.
And he creates universes, and then there's many Garbhadasha Vishnus.
Okay, so Mahavishnu is universe.
We say that there is a yuga, that God comes in a Krishna and alternate 3 yuga. He doesn't come in all the yugas.
Yeah, and Kali Yuga doesn't come.
He doesn't come. But then why do you say the yuga avatar? Why do you say?
So therefore, it's explained that in Kali Yuga, it's usually a Shaktivesh avatar that comes. So the Yuga avatar, the Kali Yuga avatar is generally a Shaktivesh avatar. The one who does kirtan. It's not full Lord. So the other ones are full. The Rakta, Sukla, and Shama, and Krishna. The Krishna one is the Kali Yuga one, and he is Shaktivesh avatar usually. And on the basis of that, it's also concluded that generally, or the other avatars who are not the Yuga avatar, that is Buddha or Kalki, they are also Shaktivesh avatar. So this means that this technically did not the Lord because they are jivas with special powers, so therefore that fulfills the definition of the Lord being Sri Yuga. At the same time, the Lord appears in Kali Yuga. However, in the case of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is not a Shaktivesh avatar, he is not even just a regular avatar, he is actually Swayambhava Krishna, another form of Krishna. So he's very, very special. And when Krishna comes also, he is not just an ordinary avatar. So the new avatars are said to manifest through the Manvantara avatar. So for instance, the Manvantara avatar for Vaivasata Manvantara is Vamanadev. So all the Yuga avatars manifest through him. But in our particular 28th cycle in Vaivasata Manvantara, Krishna comes, so he does not manifest at all through the Manvantara avatar. Rather, he is manifesting from the spiritual world. So he is directly the Lord. So he's not an expansion of an expansion of an expansion. He is actually Swayam Bhagavan. And Lord Chaitanya, consequently, is not also Shaktivesh avatar. He is also same as Krishna. So they're the exceptions. But he also fulfills the idea that the Lord is Sri Yuga by being covered. He does not manifest his powers, rather he acts as a devotee, and he preaches like a devotee.
In the story of this Brahma was killing Mahavishnu on the Brahman's body. See, Brahma and Shiva, okay, they are qualified to see Krishna's body in small form, that small side form. But what makes Mahavishnu unqualified to see this form?
In other words, actually nobody, whether it's Brahma or Shiva or Vishnu, cannot approach a higher form, that is Krishna, unless Krishna wills it. Now, a higher form like Vishnu can approach a lower form like a Devata if he wants to. But the Devatas cannot approach unless the Lord wills it. Right? So in other words, unless Vishnu wills it, Brahma and Shiva cannot approach Vishnu because they're lesser in power. If he wills, then they can see him. So if Krishna doesn't will it, then Mahavishnu cannot enter the Dwarka. He cannot see him.
But sometimes the Brahma also goes to Dwarka to see Krishna.
By the will of Krishna only. Yeah. If Krishna doesn't want, he cannot see him.
So Krishna didn't want to see this Mahavishnu in Dwarka.
That's also good. Anyway, he shouldn't come there anyway, because he's outside the universe.
What is the status of what about souls like us who enter? Ordinary souls like us who enter into
Well, the gain is by the will of the Lord or the mercy of the Lord. But then the other point is that the Lord is affectionate towards devotees and is attracted to bhakti. So if the bhakti is strong enough, then the Lord reveals himself. So one develops the right type of prema, then we can see Krishna. If we have a different type of prema, then we see other forms of the Lord. So if we develop prema for Krishna, then we're qualified to see Krishna.
Normally, this, you see this Brahma Vibhukamila, that when Krishna just about to appear, that time Brahma also prayed to Krishna. And in the Brahma timing, and still telling the our it's very short and it's like one moment. And how he forgot everything in the moment. See, just when Krishna just about to appear, and all the demigods, before that all the demigods and Brahmas went to pray. The timing of that and stealing of the account was a very short moment. In one moment. In the short moment, how he forgot that the Supreme Person of Godhead who is playing, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God who is playing as like a coward boy. He forgot that moment.
How can Brahma forget?
Yeah. He forgot that
Well, because when he saw Krishna, Krishna was playing with the cowherd boys.
Yeah.
He didn't look like Supreme Lord anymore. And he was just playing with the boys. And he was eating food and throwing food around. He had food all over his body. And he thought, well, it doesn't look like Supreme Lord. He looks like an ordinary boy. And he got bewildered because his impression of God is he should be like Vishnu and praised by the Vedas and like this, accepting sacrifices, etc. But he was there just playing with cowherd boys. So he was rather shocked by seeing that form of a little boy. And therefore he said, I will test him.
But if you see the Brahma Samhita, Brahma glorified Krishna. These are the qualities.
Yeah.
But so he forgot everything on the qualities.
That was also by the will of the Lord. Because in the Bhagavatam, I think the second canto or third canto there, the Lord makes a promise to Brahma that in this lifetime he will not be bewildered.
This lifetime.
Yeah, so therefore, if he was bewildered in the Brahma Mohana Lila, it is the will of the Krishna. It's not he's in Maya or foolish or whatever like that. So it's the will of the Lord that he was bewildered like this.
Maharaj, apart from Vishnu Tattva, from all the Tattvas, they are like devotees of the Lord. And hence, they can have some sort of relationship into any one of the 5 types of relationships. But in case of different forms in Vishnu Tattva, how do they relate themselves to Krishna? How, for example, Mahavishnu, how he relates himself to Krishna? What is the kind of relationship they share?
Well, it is simultaneously they're one, so it's not that they have a relationship, but that Jiva has a relationship. Still, they have a sense of servitude to Krishna because they recognize his, though he's the same person actually, his form is superior. So just as we will find other forms like Balaram, that he also serves Krishna. Like that. So even though he is Supreme Lord. So they have a sense of service to the Lord. Or we find Advaitacharya, and he becomes a servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they all serve even though they're actually one.
But you see the Balaram service. Balaram has 2 identities. Like a servant, that servant, he has only been the secular also. Secular service and friendship.
Yeah.
Two does he has.
Yeah. But he's also older. He serves also.
And also in the scriptures, it is predicted about the advent of Jesus Christ and Prophet Muhammad. Right? So, I mean, from our side, from Sanatana Dharma Vedic scripture side, is it good to include Bible and Quran as one of the authoritative text?
Well, Vishnu Purana describes them. It doesn't say that they're avatars, nor does it say that they're authorized. It just describes them as that. So that's not an authority for saying that therefore they're authorized or whatever.
But that Bhavishya says something about that Christ and Mother Mary Satyavashavata.
Who said?
Bhavishya
No, I think it just mentions them. It doesn't say they're avatars.
Why they are quoting like this?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, it is not related to the topic which we are discussing in my question. My question is that number of souls which are present in this material world. So, being a devotee of Krishna or being non-devotee, is that everyone except devotees, is that everyone destined to go to Yamloka for the punishments, or is that they get a human form or they get some form of species directly also, or according to their karma, according to the misdeed which they have done, everybody is destined to go to Naraka or hellish planet for punishments.
So,
Maharaj.
irrespective of being devotees and non-devotees, are they bound to go to Naraka?
Who? Devotees? No.
Devotees or not?
No. Look at the case of Ajamil. Going to be touched into the accidentally chanting the name. So what to speak of devotees who intentionally do bhakti, then Yamaraj cannot.
No, Maharaj, non-devotees, let's say in the case of non-devotees, non-devotees, they will go to hellish planet, or if they do some pious activity, or is there any chance?
It depends on the sin, what type of sin they do. If it's a terrible sin, then they get a hellish punishment. Not necessarily everybody goes to Naraka for a little sin or whatever, but if it's sufficient, then they will go.
So they can also get directly another body of any other species, like so the jiva, which is in human form, they may also get directly any other species.
Yeah, lower forms.
Without going to hellish planet.
It's possible. But generally it's described that they get a hellish punishment and then that prepares them for the next body as a lower species also.